Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. We today met with CARP across Canada. Susan Ng will be speaking in a moment and introducing her colleagues, talking about the need to enhance CPP. As you know, the Premier has been advocating for enhancements to CPP with her colleagues across Canada. I've done so with the Ministers of Finance as well, and I'll be going to Meech Lake this weekend to talk about the need for us to look at CPP for the protections of not only the workers of today, especially those of tomorrow who are going to be impacted in the coming years. So it was a very fruitful discussion. We, as you know, have had some agreement with the Ministers of Finance across Canada about the principles and objectives as to when and how to enhance CPP. And I just want to reiterate 4 of those principles for your information. They include, it has to be fully funded enhancement that focuses on today's workers. It must be a moderating effect on businesses and the economy. It should include the improvement to retirement incomes of middle-income workers who are most at risk of having insufficient retirement savings, and also protecting low-income workers going forward. Our government has been taking action on these initiatives. We've been working very closely with our colleagues in other provinces. I'm very pleased that the representation from those provinces by advocate groups of CARP who are here today, who have also been having discussions with their Ministers of Finance.
I'm very pleased to welcome CARP here, and not just CARP Ontario, but people from across the country. And I know, Susan, you will introduce all of the representatives. But as Charles has said, we had a great meeting, and I want to thank Susan Ng for her advocacy and for CARP's advocacy on this issue, and for sharing a vision of a province that supports people as they age. And I think the position that CARP is taking is a very compelling one, because they're not actually arguing for their own well-being. They're actually arguing for the well-being of their children and their grandchildren. We know that too many people in Ontario will depend largely on their savings when they retire, and in many cases, it won't be enough. And CARP has just released some eye-opening data that shows why we need to act now in order to improve retirement security. Middle-class people are at most risk of not having adequate retirement income, and if we do nothing, 20 years from now, there could be more than 600,000 seniors in Canada living in poverty, and millions more on the edge. So that is a very real concern to us, and even though it's a future concern, it's something that we have to do something about right now. So it's clear from this report that CARP has put out that CPP enhancements are an effective way to help with that scenario. So that's why Charles and Mario and I and our government will continue to work with our provincial partners to urge the federal government to enhance CPP. And Charles will be meeting with his counterpart ministers this coming weekend, and our hope is that we will be able to advance this issue. We believe that enhancement to CPP would protect every person in Ontario. We want hardworking people to have the retirement security that they deserve. So if the federal government, as we've said many times, our first choice is to have the federal government enhance CPP. But if the federal government determines that that is not the move that they are going to make, we will work on a Made in Ontario solution. And we talked about that with the representatives of CARP this morning, because we believe that this is so important. It's part of our economic plan that, as we've said, is an investment in people, investment in infrastructure, investment in a dynamic business climate. But that investment in people is critical, and this is a central part of that. So I want to thank CARP for their support across the country, and we look forward to moving ahead with them. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Susan Ng at this point.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. I want to introduce my colleagues from across the country, and I'll explain for a minute why it is that we invited them. First, to my left here, Lee Royko from Montreal, Bill Van Gorder from Nova Scotia, Ramona Kaplan from White Rock, and Bernice Rampel from Alberta, from Edmonton, Alberta. Now, we do have 57 chapters across the country, 300,000 members. We selected these 4 because they come from the provinces where their finance minister and premier have not yet signified support for CPP enhancement. We had Wes Sheridan from PEI visit with us at our AGM in October to present his plan, so he's full on in support. But in the amending formula for the CPP requires a nose count of 7 of the provinces who have 2/3 of the Canadian population. And so we need to put some pressure on those provinces who have not yet signified their agreement ahead of Monday's meeting. And we have also been very clear with our members and others what it is that we're asking for. We don't want to come out on Monday and hear them say, we'll talk about it again, but we really, really care. The answer you want to hear, and the only answer we will accept, is their decision to actually increase the CPP. By how much, in which direction, and when is something that they are free to determine. But the answer has to be yes, that they in fact are moving ahead on CPP enhancement. And that's the answer we're looking for. Now, it's clear that there have been others who have indicated why they think it's not time to go ahead with CPP, based upon the talking points of various employer groups who themselves don't provide any pensions. And frankly, some of those numbers are wrong. And so any political leader that wants to hide behind those kinds of numbers are people we're going to have to call out. There's also some indication that there's some monopoly on the views of small business. And yet the members that I brought with me here today are people who belong to local chambers of commerce and boards of trade. And they meet with small businesses and, in fact, are small business owners themselves. And they've never heard the nonsense that small business does not support CPP enhancement. Anybody who has the lived experience of trying to make do with income, with their finances after the paycheck stops knows very well we have to find a better way to save for our own retirement. It is also a ballot issue. This is something that CARP has made clear time and again, that on this issue, even loyal Conservative voters will change their vote. And that's what came out of this weekend's poll, and I think that governments of all provinces, of all stripes, should pay attention to that. This is something that will energize the one demographic that votes all the time. So with that message, and I also want to take this opportunity to thank 2 groups. I want to, in front of you, thank my colleagues from across the country who dropped everything. The voluntary chairs of our local chapters dropped everything to become part of this effort. And I also want to thank Premier Kathleen Wynne, Minister Charles Sousa, and Minister Mario Sergio, especially because they already agree with what we are pursuing, and they are spending, in many cases here now, and I thank them for spending political capital on this in the face of the opposition. And their general message to us today at today's meeting was to go out and put pressure on all of us. And so we intend to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. And you have a powerful voice that you bring to this issue, so thank you. And thank you all for being here, for traveling here.